What if I told you that the oldest functioning Christian monastery in the world, founded by Emperor Justinian in the 6th century and revered by Orthodox and Catholics, is now being turned into a tourist attraction? Because as of this week, that's no longer a hypothetical. According to multiple reports, St. Catherine's Monastery, yes, the one at the base of Mount Sinai, is being confiscated by the Egyptian government. The monks are being evicted and the property is being seized, and the monastery may be converted into a museum under state control. This is a huge deal if you are Orthodox or Catholic. This place is monumental for us. So let's break this down, because this isn't just about politics. This is just as much about history, theology, international law, and the slow erosion of Christian presence and persecution of Christians in ancient lands. Please don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to see it. So a bit of a background about this monastery and why this is so shocking. St. Catherine's Monastery has stood for nearly 1,500 years. It's one of the most important Christian sites in the world, and home to priceless manuscripts, Byzantine icons, and a continuous line of Orthodox monastic tradition going back to the early church. But this week, an Egyptian court ruled that the monastery and all of its property now belong to the Egyptian state. Not just the land, not just the museum portion, but everything. According to the ruling, the monks can remain only as long as the government permits, and they've already been barred from entering certain buildings. Before we get into what's happening right now, we need to understand how monumental this place is, not just for Orthodox Christians, but for all of Christendom. St. Catherine's Monastery isn't just some old historical site, it's a sacred ground. Built in the 6th century by the order of Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, this monastery stands at the foot of Mount Sinai, the very mountain where Moses encountered the burning bush, and where he ascended to receive the law of God, the 10 Commandments, and where Israel was formed as a covenant people. Every stone in the Sinai Peninsula has something to do with salvation history. The monastery has been in continuous operation for nearly 1,500 years, making it the oldest active Christian monastery in the world. Think about that. Before Islam even existed as a religion, monks were chanting psalms and preserving the sacred tradition of the church in that desert. And they didn't just preserve the liturgy, they also preserved civilization. The library at St. Catherine's contains one of the greatest collections of ancient Christian manuscripts on earth, second only to the Vatican. This includes early biblical texts, patristic writings, and rare icons that span centuries of Christian thought, devotion, and beauty. But this place isn't just significant for the mind. It's a well of prayer. Generations of monks have offered daily divine liturgy, unceasing prayer, and spiritual hospitality in a part of the world where Christianity has often been under pressure. Their life is a witness to asceticism, peace, and fidelity in a world of noise and violence that we live in. The site has long been revered not just by Orthodox and Catholic Christians, but even by Muslims. In fact, curiously enough, the monks of St. Catherine still possess a historic letter signed by Muhammad himself, offering protection to the Christian community there, acknowledging their place as people of the book, whatever that means, and safeguarding their rights in the Islamic world. In short, St. Catherine's is a sacred treasure for Christianity. It is one of the few remaining places on earth where the church's apostolic, monastic, and liturgical heritage continued uninterrupted, unbroken by the modern age, and untouched by consumerism and uncolonized by any kind of ideological battles. It's a link to the church fathers, and a place where a fire of the burning bush still glows in the hearts of men who have given their lives to Christ. That's what makes this recent news so devastating. So let's take a look at the article just published by Greek Times. According to orthodoxia.info, the oldest functioning Christian monastery in the world, St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, along with all its properties in Egypt, is being transferred to the Egyptian state. Nearly 15 centuries after its founding by Byzantine Emperor Justinian, and having survived remarkable historical challenges, the world-renowned and respected St. Catherine's Monastery is on the verge of being converted into a museum. Despite promises made by Egyptian President Sisi to Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis, Egypt is confiscating the monastery's property and effectively evicting the monks with the aim of transforming the now vacant buildings into a tourist attraction akin to the pyramids. So my question is, what are Christians and patriarchs and church leaders going to do about this? Are we going to see an uprising? Because this is honestly so heartbreaking. When I saw this notification, my heart sunk. But then the article continues, a decision issued yesterday by an Egyptian court has put an end, in the worst possible way, to the years-long legal assault faced by the monks of St. Catherine's from the Egyptian state. This assault, which began during the era of the Muslim Brotherhood, has been carried out through juridical pressures and attacks aimed at closing the world's oldest monastery. Yeah, so the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an Islamist political movement founded in Egypt in the 1920s, has had a very hostile relationship towards Christians in that area. During the brief rise to power after the Arab Spring, Egypt's Coptic Christian community and monastic institutions like St. Catherine's faced increased scrutiny, legal threats, and bureaucratic pressure. And although the Brotherhood was officially removed from power in 2013, many of the anti-Christian policies and legal actions it set in motion have continued under different names and faces, including the very court case now threatening to strip the monastery of its autonomy. So as we see, these attacks are not stopping, and it goes on to say, as a result, ownership of the monastery and all its assets is now transferred to the Egyptian state. The monks are required to vacate specific properties where they are no longer permitted access and are allowed to remain in the monastery to fulfill their religious duties only for as long as the new owner, the Egyptian state, permits. Yeah, so this is what's insane to me, and it shows you the true humility and gentleness and Christ-likeness of these monastics versus the very carnal and autocratic and forceful top-down rule of Islam and the general approach that Islam has taken in the past and in all of its history. The monks have historically gone out of their way here to avoid political entanglements and to maintain the fragile balance between goodwill and even welcoming certain Bedouin tribes to help protect the site. And yes, despite the long-standing coexistence, the monastery now finds itself under extreme threat, and not from armed extremists, but from the very government that once promised to safeguard it. It really shows you the Christian virtue of loving your enemies and exposes you to the dark reality of what happens when you do that at the same time. It continues, the Greek government has provided significant support to the monks' struggle, with Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis raising the issue at the highest level, repeatedly urging President Sisi to intervene on behalf of the monks. During the Egyptian president's official visit to Athens in early May, the issue was discussed by the two delegations, resulting in an agreement to halt the unjust judicial attacks on the monastery to ensure its continued operation without interference. In their joint statements, Mitsotakis and Sisi explicitly emphasized the need to preserve the monastery's character. However, despite indications that Egypt, a friendly and allied nation, would rectify the injustice as publicly pledged by its president, the recent court ruling has upended these expectations, raising legitimate questions about the true intentions of the Egyptian authorities, which seems to follow in the footsteps of the extremist Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, so with all of this going on as we speak, it's really difficult to say what exactly will play out. Will we see maybe patriarchs and maybe even the Pope step up and do something or say something about this? Are we going to see governments step in and protect the monastery? Is this going to cause more conflict in the region? I think these are all the questions that are on the top of our minds, and I hope we will see a resolution to this problem. But at the moment, it's tough to say exactly where this is headed. Yeah, so guys, this is really heartbreaking. For me as a Roman Catholic, and most definitely for all of my Eastern Orthodox and Oriental brothers out there too, this is a great moment of sadness. So I ask every one of you watching to please pray for the St. Catherine's Monastery and all of the monastics who live there. They've most definitely been praying unceasingly for all of us out here, so I think we owe it to them. And please share this story with others and stay informed and reach out to your local churches to find ways that you can maybe support the monastery. And also don't forget to support the show by donating at buymeacoffee.com/lungsoffaith or on Super Thanks here on YouTube. And also we have some new designs on our merch store, so check those out. And until next time, this is Zach from Lungs of Faith. God bless.